Well, Amanda Nguyen's traumatic personal experience led her to start her one-of-a-kind non-governmental organization called RISE, which made a name for itself by pushing for legislative change to help victims of sexual assault. Well, RISE has now helped sponsor and pass over 27 US laws and is working on more. CGTN's Karina Huber sat down with Amanda when she was a guest speaker at the Forbes Women's Summit. Karina began by asking Amanda how RISE actually works.
RISE's mission is to help everyday people pass their first law. So in cities across America, there are umbrella organizations that incubate tech startups. They give them seed funding, mentorship. Essentially, they accelerate their startup by lowering the barrier to entry. That doesn't exist for civil rights until now.
For you, though, it was personal, this journey with RISE. You were sexually assaulted in college. And what was it about that experience that made you realize there's a problem with the criminal justice system?
In my case, rape kits, before they were processed, would be destroyed at 6 months, even if the statute of limitations is 15 years in Massachusetts. And so I thought this was wrong. The other double standard is that convicted rapists have the right to hold on to the evidence for the duration of the conviction, but survivors didn't. And then the other double standard is that no other crime is treated this way. Murder, also a Class A violent felony, isn't treated this way. Evidence is kept. That's how cold cases are solved. So I thought to myself, oh, okay, well, this is wrong and unfair, and I have the right to petition the government. But critically, I remember walking into my local area rape crisis center, and the waiting room was filled. And I thought to myself, my story isn't mine alone, that I had a choice. I could accept the injustice or rewrite the law. And so I rewrote it.
And then a couple of years later, we saw in Congress that the Sexual Assault Survivors' Rights Act was passed, a huge, huge deal. It passed unanimously. What do you think was the biggest game changer about that law?
For starters, legally, it is the first time in the federal U.S. code that the word survivor is used. But also, for so many other reasons, civil rights codification is important to enshrine into law that survivors have rights, that survivors have a specific set of rights, because there is actual discrimination that's happening to survivors of sexual assault within the criminal justice system.
And your approach was not to join an existing organization to fight your cause, it was to start your own, really at a grassroots level. Why didn't you just join another existing organization? What made you say, no, I want to tackle this solo?
It's a fantastic question. It wasn't for lack of trying. I certainly reached out to some other folks who understandably had other priorities. But so often change happens when we decide, when we just say, okay, we're going to make this change. The biggest feedback that I got when I started was that it's not possible. We've been doing this for 30 years. What makes you think you can do it, right? And I really didn't have a choice. I had to fight for my rights, or else my justice would slip through my fingers. I literally had a timeline, 6 months, right? And so motivated, one, by a very urgent timeline, but two, motivated by understanding that I wasn't the only one going through this.
And why did you sort of take a startup approach to starting RISE? As you mentioned, very grassroots level, change.org you use a lot, GoFundMe to raise money, everybody's a volunteer at RISE. Why that approach?
When we started, we had a singular goal. And that singular goal was passing the law in the most efficient way possible, by getting as much support as possible. And because our incentives were change for the sake of change and nothing else, we used the innovative tools that exist in other industries. And one of the most innovative industries is the tech startup industry.
So what was the first thing that you did on that path that helped you basically develop RISE?
I literally used MailChimp and emailed everyone I knew. And because I emailed everyone I knew, the people who came back from a diverse set of not only social economic backgrounds, but professional backgrounds as well. So coders said, how can I help? Quants from finance said, how can I help? Right? These quants became our economic analysis folks. The coders helped us think through problems in a different way. Obviously, the lawyers helped write the law, and then friends from the medical community, but even friends who weren't in these professional communities. The strength of any product really comes from being able to look at something from different angles, and we were very fortunate to have and prioritize diversity of thought in creating this bill.
So what do you think would be the key to starting something similar for other people who want to get involved in civil rights?
It is so important that change is intersectional. That diversity I'm talking about is a part of that. So when considering creating change, be as inclusive as you can. And by that, I don't only mean it in identity-wise, I mean it in thought-wise. Specifically, include people who you don't agree with. A healthy democracy requires its citizens to be able to hash things out, which meant that I needed to sit across from people I really didn't politically agree with. I needed to persuade them to vote for this. It is not an easy thing to do, but it is required in order to make change at scale.